absolutely need more courageous leaders in this world. Courageous leaders of self, in business, in your family, and in the community. Not with what we're seeing at the moment, which is fear, a need to protect, a need to protect ourselves, a need to protect our reputations, a need to protect our business, a need to comply, fear-based and insecure. People have said to me, so, well, what's going to look like in your world when everybody's courageous? And I remember sitting there going, wow, what would it look like? And it was almost like I couldn't imagine it because I've lived for such a long time in this fear-driven, security-driven kind of world. And I almost didn't want to paint what it would look like because I actually want to leave it open to the exponential possibilities that we could create. And that's why at the essence of our Courageous Leaders model is an infinity symbol, because there are exponential possibilities that we can create. And for me, it would be like standing on the top of a mountain, feeling breathless, not because I'm unfit, but because of anticipation of what we could create. The courage, the inspiration, the enthusiasm, the zest, the integrity, that you could actually trust what people say. As I said, it's an infinity symbol. So we've got the infinity symbol, exponential possibilities. Where we start, we look at, in any organisation, there are two populations of leaders. There are the emerging leaders and there are the existing leaders. And it doesn't matter where you sit in an organisation. We started working at sort of middle management level. So they go, okay, so we're the emerging leaders and the existing leaders are the GMs. I'm actually currently working with the GMs and they go, oh no, we're the emerging leaders and the EGMs are the existing leaders. So you have these populations that oscillate. We're either in the club or we're not in the club. And what happens is we have this wedge of fear that sits between these populations of leaders. So we come in, we go, all right, how are we going to remove that wedge of fear? And it's going to be removed and we're going to replace it with what we call a ledge of learning, where we teeter, you know, and we go in courageously and have that conversation. And one day it works well and we go, yes. So next day we go and have it again and we go, oh no, that didn't work so well. So we teeter on this ledge of learning until we get to a place where we can really start connecting and committing. And I've had people, when they interview me, say, well, why do we want more courageous leaders? You know why? Because I want to be authentic. I want to be real. I want to be transparent. And I want to feel energized and enthusiastic and positive about who I am and what I am doing. I don't want a facade. And I've coached many, many senior business people who have lost track of how many facades they have. And they're not happy people. From the outside, they look happy. They drive amazing cars, they have amazing families, all that sort of stuff. Coaching one senior man, and he said to me, I am Mr. Cellophane Man. I said, Mr. Cellophane Man? He said, I just create this persona that everybody else needs me to be, but I don't know who I am anymore. I don't want to be a leader like that. So I'm going to encourage each of you, and I'm very happy you've got details of how to contact us, to send you some tools, some further reading that you want to do around, and the book talks about a self-mastery audit. I encourage you to do a self-mastery audit. Take it back. Go, hang on a second. What kind of leader do I want to be? What is my personal brand? And then I'm going to start connecting and committing in a different way. I'm going to start turning up differently. Great saying that I use is you reap what you tolerate. Coaching another man the other day, and he was talking about his boss and the behaviour, and I said that so long as you keep tolerating that behaviour, you're going to keep reaping it. So when are you going to have the courage to have a different conversation? So you start connecting and committing in a different way. What does happen then on the other side, and you'll see in the model, so we've got on here, we've got the emerging leaders. We want confidence, conviction and courage in our leadership mastery, in the way we're going to turn up. We're going to connect and commit. And absolutely, we need our existing leaders to come with the courage to be challenged and to change. And only then will we have a high performance culture. So challenging is a really, really critical business behaviour. And it's not one that many people sit comfortably in. The reason being, if you look up the word challenging on your thesaurus and you link down defiant, disobedient, disloyal, all these terrible words, and it's not until you get right down the bottom that it says inspiring. And it says positive stuff. And you go, no wonder people don't want to use challenging behaviour. Working with a client just recently, and up on our LinkedIn profile, you'll see, and in the Courageous Leaders LinkedIn group, which we'd love any of you to be part of, I had invited somebody to contribute. And Dr. Norman Chaun, a strategist. And the first article he put up was that in teams we need less loyalty and more betrayal. And I just went, I spoke to Nicole, I said, maybe we should just delete it, you know, just remove it. I was like, what? And it made me sit and really think about it. And you know what? Challenging sits here in the middle, the core, where we own our truth. We don't do it because the pendulum swing is on the one side of the pendulum is let's just be loyal. So we're all going to be nice to each other. And we're going to sit in the meeting and we're going to nod and we're going to be very nice and politically correct and polite. And then we're going to walk out, go, and we're going to do all the betrayal outside of the meeting. Because if we do it inside the meeting and we challenge, we get labelled as the betrayer and we get labelled as a troublemaker and all the terrible things that happen to us. So we don't do it in the meeting. So we have this pendulum swing between loyalty and betrayal. And what happens is we don't have the real conversations that we need to have. I'm accredited in human synergistics and it's a very powerful tool looking at behaviour. Do you know that the most dominant behaviour in the Australian marketplace, in business world, is avoidance, followed up by oppositional. So I'll avoid the real conversations. I'm not really going to tell you what I think. In fact, someone told me what NICE stands for. Nothing in me cares enough to tell you the truth. So I'll just be nice. I'll smile, go nice. I don't really like you, and I don't really agree with what you're saying, but I'm not going to tell you right now. I'll tell everybody else though. And then we do the oppositional thing, where we prove that people are wrong and we look for all the critiquing and the faulting and all that sort of stuff, and we belittle people. So we don't have a very constructive culture. Which means we start, and each of us in the room need to own our stuff. And challenging is not about being aggressive. It's about owning your stuff and asking if it has to be done that way. Challenging whether we can do it a different way. Inquiring about what outcomes are we wanting to achieve. Why am I being involved? How can I be involved differently? It's very constructive. And then we want to change. And change is not creating some kind of change management program. Change is about me. For anything to change, first I have to change. I have to change the way I turn up to conversations. I'm going to change the way I think and feel about things. So my leadership mastery, the essence of leadership mastery is the way I think, how I act, what I say, when I act, and my beliefs. And that oozes out of me in each of my facets of leadership mastery every day. If anyone, and I loved Anita Roddick, she always used to say, if you think one person can't make a difference, you've obviously not ever camped in a tent with one mosquito. It makes a difference. And I always remember that when I feel lonely, I think I'm only one person. Just remember that mosquito. And I used to think, I used to have a flat head. I used to pop up all the time going, but what about this? Bang. But what about this? Bang. And eventually they go, oh, for God's sake, just let her do that for a little while and let's see if it works. So I used to say I had a flat head, you know, because I kept getting banged down. But if we're all persistent and we all want to create change and we all want to have more courageous leaders and we want to have a culture where we can trust and believe in what each other says to each other, not walk out of a meeting going, I wonder what they're going to say about me behind my back, we can create change. Now, I would love to invite you to ask some questions if anyone has questions.
I just wanted to ask regarding what you were talking when you had that conversation with that person. So 2 things. What was the result? And once you confronted the person. And the other is, do you really want to work for that organisation? If you're having, you know, that, you know, internal conflict, and is that really an organisation that you should you really be there?
Yeah.
So that was...
I think there's 2 things. If I cover off that first one, for me, and I think there are probably a lot of, particularly women, who want to create change. So for me, I wanted to create change. I have 2 daughters. I wanted them to have a different world to grow up in. And in my own way was you know, working really, really hard to do that. I think it was, and the story is in the book, my husband one day said to me, so how long are you prepared to play Joan of Arc? Because each day you get burned at the stake, we get a little bit less of you back. And that was really powerful. And I thought, that's true. And I don't want to do that anymore. Eva Cox, if you've ever read any of her work, believed that we needed to create the change from within. And that really resonated with me. And that's why I hung out in there for as long as I did. The fascinating thing is many of the people that I worked with and for are now paying me a lot of money to do what I wanted to do with them when I was there. Which, so that's been quite fascinating. Were they ready for me? Were they ready for what I wanted to create? I think possibly there was an element of not being ready, and I think that's a big choice that people do need to make from the cultural perspective. I have that conversation very regularly with people when I'm coaching them, that, you know, yes, you're trying to get the step up and you're trying to transition to another place and you want them to accept you, but you also need to think about the culture that you're going to go and join, and is that going to bring out your best? And that's a big decision to make, because you want to be at your best. The other question that you asked about that meeting, I think I was really trying to transform our relationship and transform what we did to another place. The need for revenue and bottom line performance once again got in the way of us being able to do that. So there was that level of inauthenticity from the other person's end that would listen to what I said, but then would go back to Melbourne and return to the same kneecapping behaviour because the revenue wasn't at the level that it needed to be at. And I'm no longer there. Yeah, but it was tough. Thank you. Thank you for being an amazing audience. I really enjoyed being